happened in the first quarter.
Yikes.
Incomplete pass intended for Martellus Bennett. It was actually on the money. Anthony Barr was closing here and ends up, just putting all of his weight onto Rodgers and falls on that right shoulder. It's a broken collarbone, and he may miss the rest of the season. So, guys, with that, I'm going to take you to Lambeau Field and welcome in Tom Pelissero. Tom, I know Mike McCarthy is scheduled to speak here in just a little while. We'll have that for you here on the Aftermath. But, Tom, let's start with what's the very latest surrounding the broken collarbone for Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers continues to undergo tests as the Packers and Rodgers himself just try to get a handle on exactly what they're dealing with. They know that it's a broken collarbone. It is on his throwing side, but is it going to require surgery? Is it something that he potentially could rehab that's going to heal on its own? Is there any chance Rodgers could come back and help the Packers this season? It's just too soon to make those decisions. No roster move will be made involving Rodgers going to injured reserve today. Instead, the Packers made room for their new backup quarterback, Joe Callahan, on the active roster by placing cornerback Quinton Rollins on IR. Now, injuries have been an issue throughout this season for the Packers. They're short in the defensive backfield right now, and they're short on the offensive line. 3 starting offensive linemen, including both starting tackles, did not finish yesterday's game at Minnesota. So who exactly is going to protect Brett Hundley on Sunday in his first NFL start against the Saints? One of many things the Packers are going to be figuring out in the days to come.
And so how will they handle this situation now moving forward without Aaron Rodgers?
Well, it's going to be Brett Hundley. It's going to be Joe Callahan as his backup. Mike McCarthy made that abundantly clear. This is not something that people in Green Bay have had to deal with a whole lot. Of course, in 2013, Rodgers also suffered a broken collarbone. On the other side, came back after a 7-game absence. That was where they went to Seneca Wallace and Scott Tolzien and Matt Flynn and just tried to bridge the gap. Well, you know it's a bad day for Packers fans when this is the front page of the Green Bay Press-Gazette with Rodgers on a cart being taken off the field in Minnesota. But Green Bay, Rhett, is a unique place. I went to the Packers Pro Shop this morning. The guy in front of me went up to the counter and said, "Can I get a Brett Hundley jersey made?" I talked to him a little bit. I asked him, what exactly happened here? He said, well, I was watching the game, saw Rodgers go down, told my girlfriend, I guess I could try to golf the next couple of Sundays. She smacked him, said, you got to have faith in our new guy. So he went in to get a Hundley jersey made. They told me that was the 9th person to come in and ask for a Brett Hundley custom jersey today. Everybody coming in with pretty much the same story, which is you got to back up your backup.
Well, if you wanted to know what the confidence level was there in Green Bay with Brett Hundley taking over as a quarterback, just look at the jersey sales. I like it. Tom Pelissero live for us there in Green Bay with the latest. Thank you very much, Tom.
The girlfriend smacked him and then chugged the rest of her beer.
So let's look at what the Packers have had to do without Aaron Rodgers. Just 2-6-1 since 2013. Everything drops, as you might expect, except for the giveaways, which go up to near 2 a game without Aaron Rodgers. So, look, this Packers team is still 4-2. They're still very much in the NFC North race, as you know, as much as there is one going into Week 7 of the season. So, who is now, though, the team to beat in the NFC? What do you think, Heath?
The most consistent team's been the Eagles. And I always start old school. What's my offensive line look like? What's my defensive line look like? I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find me 2 better units in the league, not just in the NFC. I know what Seattle's defensive line looks like. I also know what their offensive line looks like. And so that's what leads me to put the Eagles in my number 1 spot in the NFC right now. They have a quarterback that his mobility breaks, defensive line like Seattle has to offer. He breaks those type teams back. And then Fletcher Cox. Where do I even go? Bradham last. Listen, on Thursday night, Bradham on defense, where'd he come from? He was hitting everything that moves. These 2 safeties that do not get enough credit. McLeod got hurt earlier in the year. There were some things that kind of went wrong. But between Malcolm and McLeod, the things that they can do defensively because of the mental monsters and the physical monsters they are, this defense is special. Athletic linebackers. And then, we get LeGarrette Blount. You got some wide receivers that are making plays. And Aguilar, is coming out of nowhere doing things that, this team is very scary in a lot of ways when you try to measure how can a team beat you when it matters in December and January football.
QB's not bad either.
I love that.
If they get Ronald Darby back?
Carson Wentz, potential. Fletcher Cox, great player nobody really knows about, but terrific player.
In the aftermath, yeah.
Russell Wilson, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, Pete Carroll, champions. That team knows exactly how to turn it up and turn it on. They have not wowed anybody yet. They added Sheldon Richardson, who we saw against the
Starting to
Rams.
play well last
starting
week.
to make
Yeah.
a pretty big impact. Got Michael Bennett, Bobby Wagner. There are just too many guys on that Seattle Seahawks team who know what it takes to rev it up. Aaron Rodgers now presumably not around to give them, I think, their best threat. And, I just believe they still have unfinished business. They were 2 feet away from back-to-back championships. They've hung around. Earl Thomas injury derailed them last year. I think the Seahawks are the team to beat.
I like Seattle as well, but I'm going to go a little off the grid. The Los Angeles Rams are a team. A guy called me crazy, but we've got to keep an eye on them.
Crazy.
You talked
You're
about,
crazy.
No. I'm not saying, okay, they may not come completely out of it and
Continue
go to the
crazy.
Super Bowl.
Right.
They may not come out of the Super Bowl, but you talked about offensive and defensive lines. Not bad for the. You got Aaron Donald, and Michael Brockers, and Robert Quinn, and those guys, and Connor Barwin on defense. Offensively, that offensive line is playing significantly better.
Right.
Okay, they've
Aaron
got some
Brody.
issues in the secondary.
Yep.
But the running game, Todd Gurley. Now you got special teams. Farrell Cooper here popping one.
They scare me because of defensive line, and Seattle scares me because of offensive line. And so that's why I
The
look at the
Rams'
strengths.
defensive line scares you?
Look at the running they gave up yesterday. Like, you got to be able to eliminate something a team does, and that defense is very, very spotty.
You
He
don't
was a
think?
big bruising guy.
Listen, I'm a big
And you don't
Fournette
think
fan.
they're going to get? I think the Rams are the team that could get better. Their schedule is favorable for them to get
I agree
better.
with both those statements.
Now, when they get into the nitty gritty, and now we get to the playoffs, you still have to say to yourself, if you look at the way the Rams are built, who's really can?
Seattle.
Seattle. Okay, Seattle
Philly.
gets them. But the NFC.
It's early,
open, man.
Hey,
I agree with you.
Don't sleep on the Panthers either.
No.
Well, and what if the Packers stay afloat long enough to find themselves? I mean, very much in the race.
Yeah.
Come week 16, 17 in this NFC North. And if
Throwing
Aaron
shoulder. It
Rodgers-
was 6-7 weeks last time with Aaron.
Yeah.
That was the left shoulder. Throwing shoulder, I would assume would be very different.
I don't know,
with
I'm not
the
going to count
infirmity.
him out
You
just
get
yet.
in the playoffs and you got Aaron Rodgers, you always
got
got
a chance.
And we've got NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport joining the Aftermath once again here to talk about a couple more injuries. Let's start with another team there in the NFC North, the Detroit Lions, who saw Golden Tate leave that loss to the Saints early.
Left that loss with a shoulder injury. I'm told he's expected to miss some time, likely a couple weeks. They do have a bye, so that is at least a good sign for the Lions, maybe a little bit of time to minimize the absence for Golden Tate, who does have an AC joint sprain in his shoulder, had an MRI today, and that was the diagnosis. Speaking of AC joint sprains, there's a lot of that going around. Jameis Winston, the Bucs starting quarterback, has the same thing, but a much more mild form of this injury. He does have it to his throwing shoulder, so that is a little bit of cause for concern. But my understanding, first of all, Winston having some tests today on that, but my understanding is that this is something that they believe he will be able to play through. Speaking of AC joint sprains, again, Trevor Siemian has the same injury, except not on his throwing shoulder, on his non-throwing shoulder. Had that injury yesterday after diving. Actually, you're seeing it right here, diving, trying to prevent a touchdown. This is another one, according to Vance Joseph. They believe he is going to be okay. Had a positive result on the MRI. Not the same for Emmanuel Sanders, though. His receiver has an ankle sprain, going to be out this week against the Chargers, and maybe another week after that.
Yeah, Simeon dealt with a injury to his non-throwing shoulder last year as well, so we'll see how he's able to deal with that moving forward.
This
Ian
one's
Rappaport.
not as bad.
Not as bad. Okay, well, good to know. Thanks very much, Ian. Appreciate your insight there. And when we come back here on the Aftermath, the Raiders have lost